Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. I'd like to talk about aging and what happens to us and our world as more of us live longer. And there's no one better to discuss this with than Dr. Ruth Finkelstein. She's Associate Director of the Robert N. Butler Columbia Aging Center and Assistant Professor of Health Policy and Management at the Mailman School of Public Health. And she's my guest today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
We've got a lot to talk about.
True.
Isn't 65 too young to be called a senior citizen?
My feeling is, and I think that more and more science supports the idea that chronological age by itself isn't very useful. What is much more important is one's functional age, which captures what one is able to do. And as you know perfectly well, 65 is not the end of anything for most people now. Yet, as you also know, there are some people who become less able at an earlier time than that. So my feeling is there isn't a chronological number that's the right chronological number. We have to complicate our understanding of the relationship between age and aging.
That's so interesting. But then, because the fact that we're living longer has such a great impact on everything.
Absolutely.
Everything, from our own lives to our government and our tax system and our social security system and the medicine, everything, right?
Absolutely.
So how do we come to an age then, say, for Social Security?
Well, so let's not start with Social Security.
Let's do the personal.
Start with the life course.
Okay.
And a re-understanding of how we have to think about the life course. So, before, the first thing I want to say, actually, is that this is the first time in history that there's a whole generation of people who are really old, which we're not really aware of, because of course there's always been some really old people. Mm-hmm. There are really old people in stories, there's really old people in the Bible, but a generation of people who are really old is a new phenomenon because life expectancy has been increasing so quickly that just 100 years ago, it was 30 years shorter than it is today. So that's an incredibly fast change. Yes. And we have an understanding of the life course that's completely out of date. Mm-hmm. So currently, we think roughly in terms of you get educated in the first, call it quarter century of your life, right? First 25 years, pretty much you're devoted to education. Not so much to play, not so much to work, mostly to learning. Then, for that middle quadrant, middle half of your life, you devote yourself to work. And then, at the end of that time, now at 65, you fall off a cliff and commence 30 years of leisure. And this, of course, is bad at every stage. It's bad both for the people who are living through that stage and for all the people around them in a whole array of ways. First of all, devoting yourself only to education in the first part of life, we then are shocked and horrified that people come out the other end of that experience without work preparation, without work skills, without a work ethic, and also without a lot of interests and hobbies and relationships and network and so on, because we have the wrong model. Then, worst of all, is this middle all work all the time period, which is, of course, exactly when we also need to raise families. We also need to care for elders. We also have a lot to contribute to society, to civic organizations, to politics, to culture, and so on. But yet, we're in this mindset where what we're expected to do and successful at doing and need to do economically is work. And then we cultivate no interests. Our relationships atrophy because we're so busy and people are sort of running as hard as they can just to raise their families. And then all of a sudden, they've got nothing. And all the time in the world because they've been sort of pushed out of the work that was their engagement and are in this new period of life that we don't have the structures for, the institutions for, the mindset for. So what a lot of people are starting to think is that we can't just reimagine aging. We have to reimagine the life course. And what that means is that throughout our life course, we need to have periods of education, periods of work, periods of leisure, you know, the old idea of a sabbatical, where you withdraw, you learn something new, you get perspective, you go somewhere different, and you bring back a new verve into your work. And this then is an intergenerational life course where it's not that your age determines what activities you're engaged in, but you could be engaged in this range of activities at any age. So then you would also be engaging with people who are a range of ages in all these different activities. There's no real reason why everybody on college campuses, except you and I, has to be young. It shouldn't be that everybody on college campuses is young. There should be older faculty members, older staff members, older students, older mentors, older artists there, older audience members for the wonderful seminars and performances and so on. The same is true of the workplace, and the same is true of our civic engagement. So this is, I'm agreeing with you 100% that because of new aging, we have to reconceptualize everything.
So where do we start?
Yeah.
That's an enormous problem, right? So the Butler Center does some astonishing work. I mean, what's the first thing that you address?
Well, first of all, one of the things that's special about the Butler Center, we think, is that we both have a very strong research component and a very strong translational component. So we want to translate new knowledge into policy and practice. So that's our way of doing everything that we do. Now, in terms of what are the big themes, just as you say, where do you start? That's a huge agenda. So one of our core themes is actually about work. And one of the reasons that we focus on work is because it is a core engagement in people's lives. And it's one of the ways that people are differentiated by age, right? So it's one of the big things that changes over the life course is people's engagement with work. And we don't think that people should be forced to retire ever. And we also think that the conditions of working, the flexibility and the way benefits are structured and hours and training and job structured and so on, should facilitate people being able to work as long as they want. Now, this is not the answer to questions about pensions and Social Security. We also believe that people should be able to collect the entitlement payments that they've earned when they want them.
I see. So
without prejudice. But currently we have the system set up in a way that it's very hard to work some of the time and collect some of the time to go back and forth, to have the kind of flexibility that we feel like would be best for people.
So practically, you have a program where you look for employers, right?
Well, Yeah.
who do employ older people and who really believe the same thing you do.
So this is called Age Smart Employer, and it's funded by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, and the Butler Center runs the program out of Columbia. We're partnered with the New York Academy of Medicine also, where the program originated. And we look, just as you say, we have identified the policies and practices that make it possible for workers of all ages to be productive and to thrive. Many of these policies and practices are excellent for working parents, for students, for older adults. They're not older adult specific policies. And then people apply and compete to win these Age Smart Employer Awards. And this year, some of the top brands in the city won this award. So Brooks Brothers, you think about Brooks Brothers as your first best suit, right?
Yeah.
They're a very successful brand. And the Brooks Brothers tie factory in Long Island City has more than a third of their workforce is over 55. And they have a whole series of policies and practices that make that possible and make those workers thrive in that setting. Amy's Breads, that wonderful bakery that's expanded so quickly over the last few years, has a commitment to the bakers that were there when they founded the company. And they've done job restructuring and ability to sort of dial up and dial down as you want to over time in order to keep the skill and the mentorship of those bakers. Those are just a couple examples. NYU Langone Medical Center, right up the street, has such amazing policies and practices. They won an award both for their recruitment of older workers, their use of their retired network for employee recruitment, and then an amazing set of benefits that even include things like a chill-out room, daily yoga, a hotline you can call if you feel stressed. And none of those things are age-specific, but all of those things facilitate your being able to stay on the job as long as you're able to make a contribution.
At the same time, there's a lot of research about the brain and what to do to keep your aging as healthy as possible.
Absolutely. And interestingly, that work is consistent with what we've just been talking about. So the research about how to have an active, healthy brain as we age shows us that there are a few basic things we need to do. The first is social engagement, as we were just talking about, as well as intellectual stimulation. Now, work in the workplace can provide both. Of course, it's not the only thing that provides either of those things, but those two. Exercise. Now, we used to always know that exercise is good for your body. But the full understanding of how good exercise is for your brain in the short term and in the long term is a very active area of research. And there's new findings coming out all the time, reinforcing that among the best things you can do for your brain is to exercise. And then, of course, to avoid chronic conditions, because the sort of ongoing burden of chronic conditions, which also relates back to the other three things, is also has implications for the aging brain.
At the same time, then we have to be concerned in the public space about how to make the environment adaptable for all people, not only for people with disabilities, but for people who are a little older.
Absolutely, and it's both the built environment and the social environment. So we have to think about both spheres. And I'll give you a few kind of concrete examples of how this is not necessarily so difficult once you start talking with older adults themselves, looking at the world from, I think I can now say, our point of view, and learning from that. So one of the issues that needs to be addressed is, interestingly, sidewalks. I never thought about sidewalks in my life until I started talking with hundreds of older adults. And I came to realize that the way that the sidewalks are poorly maintained and uneven and have things sticking out of them and potholes and make people nervous about walking down the street for fear of falling, have to look down when they're walking down the street rather than up to see and greet their neighbors, to enjoy the daylight and the sunshine and the birds, and just be full of anxiety. So that's an interesting area that, and we have developments that are being built around the country that don't even have sidewalks at all. So they're predicated on the idea that people should drive wherever they go, when we know that walking where you go is wonderful for all sorts of reasons. I mean, it's good exercise, you run into your neighbors, it just has you more out and about and engaged. It's a wonderful thing. Public transportation. Now, New York City, you know, we've got those subways and they're pretty deep underground, and making the stairs and the subways and the platforms work for everybody regardless of level of ability is a gigantic undertaking. And as you know, there's no magic wand to wave and make the whole system accessible. The MTA, the city and the state, have committed that as they're renovating stations and as they're, you know, building the new line, we should all live to see it, they're making that accessible. But in the meantime, we've got the kneeling buses. And the kneeling buses are really important. You know that every bus in New York City goes down to the level of the ground. And all you have to do is say, I need the bus to come down. And it does. And this allows people who, for whatever reason, can't climb the bus stairs to ride the bus. We also have more and more and more of those good bus shelters, you know, those glass ones with the bench. Exactly right.
Benches.
Exactly right. And speaking of benches, one of the accomplishments of Age-Friendly New York City, led by the mayor's office, city council, and the New York Academy of Medicine, I used to work in that, was that we identified that people need benches. And, you know, back in the 80s, the city took out all the benches, concerned that people might sleep on them. And, of course, as you see, that intervention ended homelessness as we know it in New York. But in the meantime, it took out all the benches. I'm being sarcastic, obviously. In the meantime, they took out all the benches. And so we were able to convince the Department of Transportation to put benches in, and furthermore, via, in part, a participatory planning process, where it really is true that one day DOT called me down to their office downtown and said, all right, so, you know, now we're going to do the benches. Where should we put them? And I said, well, I don't know where you should put them. I'm not their target audience. I'm not who's sitting in them. Maybe we should ask the people who need to sit in them where to put them. And they said, if you can come up with a way to get people's input into where the benches should go, we will take that input. And so we did.
So we need, you're talking now about the involvement of, this is what I was thinking about. What we need is more understanding, more respect, I think. But now look at the presidential election. It just came to my mind. Here you have Bernie Sanders, who's, 72 years old, Hillary Clinton, who's 69, Donald Trump, 69, and then you've got Rubio, who's whatever age, and he's making age the issue, really, about old. They will when it comes, if they do get a younger person. And some people are saying, well, look at this, a 74-year-old guy running for president. But what we're really saying is, why not? They could run.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's showing a lack of respect for the ability of people as they age.
That's exactly right.
And what's happening is science is really improving the fact that you can age still with this intelligence and ability to make decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Science and also public health.
Public health. It is a public health issue.
It is a public health issue, and also the huge improvements in longevity parallel improvements in public health. You know, so improvements in water and sewage and nutrition and activity and the safe, you know, job safety and education. And also, longevity is not just about living longer. It's about the changing structure of the population. So it's also about a drop in fertility rates. So for the population to be getting older, it's both that people are living longer and that there are fewer children being born. And what predicts a drop in fertility rates is the education of women and the participation in the labor force of women.
Money.
And the rising status of women. So it is a product of the improvements in the status of women around the world that we have an aging population. So one of the things we have to recognize is that this is a triumph of public health and of development. And so we have to learn how to capitalize on this huge bonus of human capital that we're currently missing out on because we have old-fashioned attitudes that are stereotyping and prejudice, and that are frankly just out of date.
I always remember, I think I filled in some kind of a passport form and all the different ages, 65, and then, as you said, the drop at the end. Now, we're lucky in New York because we're having the Borough President of Manhattan, Gail Brewer, is sponsoring, along with what, the Dana Foundation and your
the Columbia Aging Center is a sponsor, and there's also other universities and community organizations involved, NYU, Oates, a whole range of them.
And they're a day, I think it's a Sunday, March
20th.
And it's here at the Graduate Center?
That's correct.
And it is going to have, first it has a panel with neuroscientists.
That's correct.
And we're going to hear about the brain.
Hear about the brain and hear about the things that individuals can do to promote their own healthy aging, as well as how society needs to be structured to promote the healthy aging brain. So that's the learning and listening part. And there, Dr. Fink and Dr. Suzuki from NYU and Dr. Small from Columbia University, from Taub, are going to be the speakers there. They're all wonderful speakers, incredibly knowledgeable researchers. And it's, that part's a great opportunity. But then,
you tell us.
Well, then there's an expo where people can experience both exercises and sort of tests of their functioning in their brain, but also learn about opportunities of things they can get involved with around the city that will help to promote their healthy aging brains, ranging from, DeRotes Open University to In Synergy, a new workforce placement agency for people over 55, to, learning to use computers, and, and a whole, and there's going to be exercise, and there's going to be
meditation,
everything. You name it, it's going to be there.
It's March 20th, and I guess if you go to Gail Brewer's website, you'll see it all advertised.
Right, it's advertised there. You can sign up. And it's called Up With Aging. You can also just Google Up With Aging and find the brochure and the information about how to register. And I'll also say, you know, all props to Gail, who is a fabulous champion, as you know, of so many issues, including aging. But it's also kind of wonderful that her senior advisory committee has really taken a strong leadership role in creating this expo and this panel. It's their concept, it's their idea, and they're executing and implementing. So it's a great example of what we're talking about is civic engagement and participation and contribution of older adults directly.
So are you overwhelmed sometime with the task before you? You're so full of enthusiasm, I don't think you are.
Well,
nothing overwhelms you, right?
Well, of course, life overwhelms me. I'm human. We all get overwhelmed by life. But I'm stimulated and motivated by the challenge before me. I want the world to be different. I want it to be different for your generation, for my generation, for the next generation, and all the generations after that.
It's going to have to be different, isn't it?
Well, it's going to have to be different, but how it's different
right. You're going to
depends
make it
on
good.
us.
Right. It is. It's so interesting, and it's basic. You have to go from government to everything.
That's exactly right. And
it's outside and it's inside, because it's also important, isn't it, to know as you age that you're gonna still be productive and have a very full life.
And you have to know, as you're going through all the life stages, that if you're successful, you're going to age. So right now, you know, when you think about how do kids learn about human development, you know, your babies, then there's a huge period of time where they learn about puberty, you know, and then you're young adults, and then you're an adult. And it's just sort of, the story kind of trails off, and you never think about that adulthood isn't just a plateau. Adulthood has itself lots of stages, and we need to think about and plan for and vision forward those stages starting much sooner than we do.
And feel up with aging.
And feel up with aging.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ruth Finkelstein. It's been so informative and so interesting, and I hope people will go to this conference or expo, or what do we call it? An expo?
It's an expo,
okay.
And I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you are too.
Thank you, I am. If there are any people you'd like to hear or topics you'd like us to explore, please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016. Or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.